Hello, this video will demonstrate a basic comparison between two marine weather routing tools for sailors. The first is Maxsea, using their installed chart plotting software that is the routing module and Maxsea's race module. The other is Predictwind's online weather routing tool. For this demonstration we will be using the same boat polar specifications, for example the boat speed depending on wind speed and wind direction. The latest Grib weather, wind files were used. For Maxsea, two different sources were selected for comparison. For Predictwind, they use 4 different Grib and weather information sources to help determine the best, safest or even the fastest route for racing. We will be looking for the fastest route, that may not always be the shortest. All acceptable wind and wave settings will be maxed out, so that none of the tool will be restricted and therefore non-biased. However, before starting we must make you aware that the results will have some differences, mainly due to Maxsea's and Predictwind's different software algorithms, and that sea current and tide calculation data sources could also differ. This test will display visibly different routes, and it will be up to the user to determine what route to choose. And it will also be up to the user to check the route is clear of all obstructions, such as sandbanks, buoys, shipping lanes and anchored ships. Give all objects on charts a wide berth when planning your route. 100 to 200 meters is often used as a minimum distance to safely navigate past, but you must use your discretion. You must take care when using Predictwind's automatic coast detection method. Sailing close to any shore has its dangers. Underwater obstructions may be present and in most cases will not be shown on any chart. Now let's start. Predictwind uses its own source, the Grib files, but for Maxsea, I have downloaded Grib files from both Grib US and globalmarinenet.com. What you are looking at is a software called Maxsea, a chart plotting software package. Once purchased, the owner will have to install onto their PC. Maxsea will come with a unique serial number that will have licensing restrictions of use, such as only being able to be installed on 2 computers belonging to the purchaser. A similar story goes for the charts. It may be obvious, but you have to order charts before you can use this software for navigation. They must be relevant and up to date for the area you're going to sail. I prefer sea map charts, because they are clear and obvious to the eye for my recreational sailing. When on the other hand, Navitronics charts have a lot more detail, but sometimes too much detail can clutter the screen for pleasure craft users. You choose. I will now create a route from east to west. It will be 1500 mile long and have the same start and finish locations as seen in the latitude and longitude screens. Will Maxsea, it will automatically start to calculate the route the moment I finish clicking on the end point of the route. However, I have found with this version of 1.98, it is a little difficult to create complex routes with more waypoints than just start and finish. Predictwind makes easy work of such a job, as we will see after this. You can, however, review the route details, and if by chance something is not of your liking, such as wind speeds or wave heights, you can filter out those dangers in the routing options menu at the top left of the screen where the symbol of Maxsea is located. You will need to delete the route just created and recreate, so Maxsea can calculate with the new limitations you have just set. But as I said at the start, this test is for speed, and so no restrictions are in place. There, it is finished. Now you can see a route Maxsea has calculated and displayed. It is possible in both Maxsea and Predictwind to save and even export this route in GPX format to use in other software or an auto-helm device. I will go over the results of this test at the conclusion later. Now let's do the same in Predictwind. Obviously I have to have a Predictwind Pro account. A STD or free account will not have the top level of accuracy to match Maxsea's routing. As I said, it's a non-biased test, and we want non-biased results. Best against the best. You will need this level of account with Predictwind to get access to the high-quality weather data. The data is extensive. The data available here includes up-to-date forecasts, wave and swell data, wind, speed and direction, air and sea temperature maps, clouds coverage, and the most important, accurate tidal and ocean currents, and the high-resolution 1 km weather Grib files, instead of some standard 60 km Grib files. Not to mention the features we are about to use, such as the weather routing and departure planning. Now let's create a calculated route using all of this available data that Predictwind say is so good that professionals use it. Grib files can differ from supplier. Predictwind state that they offer the best available. 1-day Grib being 1 km for local areas, and a 5-day popular coastal cruising waters are 8 km. An offshore 5-day forecasts at 60 km, and then globally at 9-day 100 km resolution. You can easily see the areas on their map in blue boxes for high resolution. The red boxes have tidal data included. You will have to review Predictwind's website page to keep up to date on any changes. The route I have chosen passes through two such high-resolution areas before heading into the mid-Atlantic Ocean. This will give a mix of tidal current, high-resolution wind data, then giving way to ocean wind and current Grib data. All the different resolutions in the areas will be used in Predictwind. From 1 km to 60 km based on each area the boat is calculated to reach per timed isochron intervals. It's about time I stop nattering on and get on with it. So let's do it now. Here you see the same course from the same point to point as I used on Maxsea. The only difference is that the calculation used here is done on a web server, not on the computer. Unfortunate it takes longer to calculate the route than Maxsea. Not a problem at home maybe, but it would be if you're at sea wanting a quick answer. Now it is finished. We can review the course over ground is different to Maxsea. But what about the results? Time taken, miles covered, etc. One thing to look out for is if the results are massively different. Then it could be a sign that we did something wrong. We must first check. Then if the information we input is correct and equal on both Maxsea and Predictwind, it could be their systems giving widely opposed results. If it was that case, it does not mean one is better than the other or one worse than the other. It's a choice thing. We could look to find a result that best suits our boat, or that we prefer the weather on a particular result, such as calmer seas, less wind speed, etc. If we were cruising, we could select a route that took a little more time but gave a more comfortable crossing. Predictwind offers such a routing setting to exactly that. But for now, we want speed, and lots of it. So we will review the fastest results and now compare them both. As we can now see, Maxsea has only just clinched it, with 5 days, exactly, compared to Predictwind's PWG model, at 5 days, 1 hour, 22 minutes, and Predictwind's PWC model just behind, at 5 days, 2 hours, and 55 minutes. The results are very close as far as the time taken. I see that the max wind speed is close also. This is good news to say the least. A test like this having close results means both routing tools are doing their job very well and we have matched the boat's polar correctly. But let's not stop there. Let's look deeper into the route on the chart and some more details. We now see that the PWG Grib and Predictwind has given the very similar results to Maxsea. The route over ground is practically the same. Only 1 hour and 22 minutes difference on the time taken. the PWG route on Predictwind had travelled a little distance more, at about 52 miles more. But Predictwind's PWC model had only travelled 8 miles further than Maxsea. But when we review down the list, we see that the wave height is larger and more of the time, making a crossing a bit bumpy for some boats. I based this boat Polar on a 40-foot trimaran. The natural boat speed is higher and would ride moderate waves smoother. So let's have it. What route would we take out of these three? Well, we should think first. What a route may show on the computer is not necessarily going to be what happens in real life. The sailors and boat itself would need to be able to handle the distance, weather, and whatever the high seas threw at it. When recording your polar for your boat, did you consider the absence of the cruising or racing consumables, such as water, fuel and food, etc.? Maybe you should record your polar using your automatic polar software. One polar for local racing, and another for any other sailing you do. Will the crew be able to trim the sails in such wind speed? Are your reefing lines set up correctly? And finally, have you ever set up a route using one of these weather routers and attempt to match the data in the real world? Until you do that, as if you're in a race or cruising, you will not be totally sure that you will keep up with what may be possible on paper. A pause for thought. If you go faster on a route, or even slower, by a given amount, it could be enough to put you in at a different weather pattern. The weather that you had computed to be meeting you has already passed over, it's gone, leaving you in the doldrums, or worse, in a force 13 hurricane. Remember, these Grib files are only accurate within 48 hours really. Outside that, it's a hit and miss, or the luck of the draw. Now that brings me back round to the original question. What weather routing package is best? It all depends on what kind of sailing you do, or plan to do, where you're going, or where your sailing area is. For example, if you're crossing the English Channel, you could receive a mobile signal part of the way, and then again, the French side to plan your trip back. So connecting your mobile phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot for your computer, you can use Predictwind very well. But in addition, you would need a standalone charting software. But on the other hand, if your route is offshore for days, then you're better off with Maxsea and a low-cost satellite connection such as Iridium Go. Iridium Go cost anywhere between £500 to £1,000, depending where you buy it. It has a very slow connection speed of just 2.4 kilobits, but it can however download Grib files easily, as Grib files are only a few kilobits, compared to multiple web pages etc. If you want Predictwind on an offshore route, such as crossing the Atlantic Ocean, as our demonstration shows, you'll be paying thousands on a satellite data connection equipment, and hundreds on charges. Some equipment I have looked at cost anywhere between £2,000 up to £12,000 and beyond. If you want another choice of chart and weather routing, you could look at another choice, Adrena. I have not used or tested Adrena, but its price is far more than Maxsea, but could pay for itself in 5 to 6 years compared to Predictwind. But there again, Adrena could be out of date by then and would need upgrading.
Thank you for watching. The demonstration has now ended. If you would like to leave any comments or suggestions below, we may be able to review and respond back within time. Thank you again.